Late June 1976. News breaks that Palestinian terrorists have hijacked a passenger jet.
Good evening. An Air France jet was hijacked by Palestinian guerrillas today. On board, some 80 Israelis and 157 other passengers.
For those with relatives on the flight, it is a waking nightmare. French-Israeli Robert Maimoni's only son, 19-year-old Jean-Jacques, is amongst the hostages.
It was the worst hour of my life. I didn't know what to do. I asked myself, what could I do? But I couldn't get an answer.
3 hours after leaving Libya, almost 14 hours into the hijacking, the terrorists forced the pilot to land. As day breaks, passengers see dozens of troops gather on the tarmac. At midday, a further 9 hours into the ordeal, they're herded to a disused terminal building. A soldier captures the drama on film as the hostages realize they're at Entebbe Airport in Uganda, a small state in East Africa. Entebbe has been chosen carefully by the terrorists. It's 2,000 miles from Tel Aviv, a distance which should keep it safe from Israeli commandos. Uganda is ruled by dictator Idi Amin.
Uganda, waye!
He's famed for being eccentric and unpredictable. Amin arrives at the airport with Ugandan media in tow. On seeing a potential savior, the hostages break into applause.
Oh, we were so happy. We were sure that that's it. It's a finish of the whole story. Because Idi Amin, all of us knew, is a very, very great friend of Israel.
What most hostages don't realize is that Amin has changed his allegiances. At one time, he enjoyed close ties with Israel. Then, in 1972, Israeli Premier Golda Meir refused to provide aircraft for Amin to attack neighboring Kenya. Amin responded by pledging his allegiance to the Palestinian cause. Israel is being challenged by terrorists and an entire army. Fortunately, it's an army that acting head of the counter-terrorist unit, Muki Betsa, knows well. In an extraordinary coincidence, Betsa helped train Ugandan soldiers. He knows their weaknesses.
Their knowledge is very basic. They know how to load a gun, fight in an open field, and read a map.
Then, an even bigger breakthrough. He finds out that an Israeli construction firm built the old terminal at Entebbe. The firm still holds the blueprints. Betsa devours every detail. Before sending a rescue mission, he must know the building inside out. The front of the building has 7 points of entry. Doors 3 and 4 lead directly into the main lounge, where the terrorists hold the hostages. Monday night, the passengers are forced to sleep on the floor with the lights left on. 5 p.m., day 3. A telegram from the terrorists revealed their demands. They want dozens of jailed terrorists released. Like Japanese extremist Kozo Akamoto, who carried out a massacre at Israel's Lod airport in '72. And Archbishop Capucci, who smuggled weapons to terrorists in the Middle East. They set a deadline of Thursday, 2 p.m. This gives the Israelis 45 hours to respond. If their demands aren't met by then, the terrorists will start shooting hostages. Publicly, military commentators insist that Entebbe is too far away for Israel to launch a rescue.
We don't have any military solution it has to be solved on the political side first.
Relatives know Israel will never negotiate with terrorists. The situation looks hopeless. Hostages watch Ugandan soldiers smash through a partition wall. The German woman inspects the seized passports. She calls out names and directs hostages into the makeshift room.
Terence Johnson.
The passengers realize that the terrorists are separating the Israeli hostages from the non-Israelis. In the concentration camps, this process was known as selektia, or selection. The Nazis murdered Sarah's aunts and uncles during the Second World War.
The feeling was kind of a disaster, like a Holocaust again. I never thought that it will happen again after the World War II, such a separation.
The terrorists tell the selected Israelis that come the deadline, they will be singled out for execution. Day 4, less than 24 hours to the deadline. Muki Betzer is under pressure. His commander is away on exercise, and Defense Minister Shimon Peres is pressing for a military option. The unit insists a raid isn't an option yet. It can't send men into an unknown situation. Betzer needs more information about the terrorists' weaponry and tactics. Defense Minister Shimon Peres realizes he must buy more time for Betzer. Peres discovers that Armin wants to use the crisis to boost his standing as a world leader. The Israeli decides to turn this to his advantage.
I thought, well, he was the guy that we can play a little bit with. Because they told me many stories about him. They told me that he's looking for world glory. They told him that if he will help us to save the hijacked people, he may get a Nobel Prize, which immediately appealed to his old dreams.
Day 5. 3 hours to the deadline. Israel steadfastly maintains its policy of refusing to negotiate with terrorists. For hostages' families, frustration at the politicians boils over.
Give the hijackers what they want, they screamed. Just let our loved ones come back alive.
Robert Maimoni joins the campaign, urging Israel to give in to the demands.
I always hoped that for that price, we could get our son back alive.
The terrorists move the Israeli hostages back to the main terminal. Sarah Davidson is forced to confront her worst fears.
The worst thing is if they take my children from me. If they will take them, I don't know, I could kill them with my hands. I would do anything just to save my 2 children.
Something has to give, or innocent people will be murdered. It's minutes until the deadline, when Palestinian terrorists will execute Israeli hostages. The world watches, listens, and prays.
In Jerusalem and throughout Israel, Jews were saying special prayers for the safety of the hostages.
The families of the hostages take matters into their own hands. They descend upon the Tel Aviv office of Premier Yitzhak Rabin and make a demand of their own.
Time was running out, and the fear, anxiety of the relatives of the Israeli hostages spilled out into an angry outpouring of emotions.
For Israel's politicians, the pressure is intolerable. With no military option, they announce a U-turn which stuns the world. It will give in to the terrorists' demands.